trapped Apache woman. She was ready to die until the cowboy made her believe in life again. The sun was low over the red canyons of Cochise 9, a distant desert planet on the edge of the Rim territories. The sky burned orange and pink, and the wind carried sharp grains of sand that cut like tiny knives across the exposed skin. Out here, far from any outpost or settlement, life was a fight. Only the strongest or the smartest could survive. Ayani moved silently along the canyon's edge, her boots barely leaving prints in the rust-colored dust. Her dark hair, tied back in a simple braid, whipped in the wind, and her eyes scanned every shadow. She was alone, as she had been for months since the raiders had come. Her people, her tribe, her family, all gone, destroyed in one violent sweep for the mining rights to the planet. Ayani had nothing left. No home, no one to trust, no reason to keep going. Yet, she still survived. Survival was automatic now. Her body knew the paths, the safe spots, the places to hide from the drones that patrolled the canyons, searching for anything moving. She had learned to move like a ghost, blending into the red rock, carrying only what she could use, her knife, a small energy pistol, and a pack with water and dried protein rations. But today was different. Something in the air made her stop. The wind was louder than usual, carrying a strange hum. She crouched behind a jagged rock and scanned the horizon. For a moment, the desert seemed empty. Then, a shadow moved across the rocks on the opposite side of the canyon. Ayani's hand went to her pistol instinctively. The figure was tall, wearing a long duster coat and a wide-brimmed hat, and moving with a confidence that made her pause. Cowboys, she thought? They came here sometimes, far from the law, far from anyone who could stop them. Most were trouble, but some were survivors, like her. The man stopped on a ridge and looked around. Even from a distance, Ayani could see the outline of his face, hard and lined, but alert. His eyes scanned the canyons like he knew what to expect. And somehow, she knew he could handle himself in this desert. She weighed her options. Stay hidden and watch, or approach? Normally she would stay in the shadows, but something about him made her curious. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, like he had seen too much but wasn't afraid. Maybe it was that sense of danger. He wasn't ordinary. Ayani made a decision. She stepped out from behind the rock, keeping low, her pistol ready but not raised. The man's eyes snapped toward her immediately. There was no fear in his gaze, only sharp awareness. "You lost?" he called, his voice low and rough, with a hint of amusement. "I could ask you the same thing," she said, her voice calm but firm. He smiled faintly. "Name's Cole, Silver Spur." "And you are?" "Ayani." She didn't say more. Names were dangerous here, but something about him made her hesitate. She had learned over months that trust could kill you as easily as a sandstorm. Cole's eyes studied her. "You're not one of them," he said, pointing to the distant trails where corporate raiders often passed. "You move like someone who wants to survive, not someone who's hiding." Words were expensive out here. Every sentence could give away too much. She just nodded slightly. Cole shrugged and began to move along the ridge. "Well, Ayani, I don't suppose you're here for company? The desert doesn't make friends easy." She followed at a distance, curious despite herself. The canyons twisted and turned, and the sand made it hard to hear more than the wind and the occasional distant rumble of rock slides. Hours passed. The sun sank lower, and shadows stretched across the canyon walls. Ayani noticed strange patterns in the sand, marks left by some mechanical creature. Drones. Scavenger drones that searched for survivors or anything valuable to steal. She signaled to Cole, pointing at the tracks. Crouched, examining them with a frown. "Fresh," he muttered. Could be a patrol from the mining company or something worse. Ayani's pulse quickened. She had encountered drones before, and they were relentless. The thought of being trapped or hunted again brought back painful memories of her tribe. She tightened her grip on her pistol. Cole noticed her tension. "Don't worry. We'll handle it. Together." The words sounded simple, but something about his tone made her pause. Together. She had lived alone for so long, trusted no one, and now, here was this cowboy suggesting that maybe she didn't have to survive alone. Before she could respond, a metallic whir rose from the canyon below. Shadows moved in the sand. 3 scavenger drones, sleek and sharp, their sensors glowing red. They were scanning, searching. Ayani reacted first, firing her pistol. The blast hit the first drone, but the others advanced quickly. Cole drew his own weapon, a long-barreled energy rifle, and fired with precise shots. Sparks flew as the metal of the drone sizzled under the energy beams. The two moved together seamlessly, ducking behind rocks, taking turns covering each other. For the first time in months, Ayani felt a strange thrill. The rush of survival, the heat of danger, and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. They fought for what felt like an eternity, but the drones were relentless. Finally, Ayani had an idea. She led them toward a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. The drones, too large to follow, crashed into the rocks as she and Cole slipped through. Breathing heavily, Ayani pressed her back against the cool stone. Cole did the same, eyes scanning the shadows. "You're good," he said finally, nodding at her. "You're not bad yourself," she replied, a hint of a smile breaking through her tension. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the desert in deep reds and purples. The temperature dropped rapidly, and the wind carried a chill. Ayani shivered, pulling her coat tighter around her. She had survived many nights in this desert, but something about tonight felt different. Cole set up a small portable heater and energy lamp. The glow was faint, but enough to light the small cave they had taken refuge in. He handed her a ration bar. "Eat," he said simply. "You'll need your strength for whatever comes next." Ayani hesitated, then took it. As she chewed slowly, she studied him. He wasn't a raider, wasn't one of the corporate mercenaries. He was just another survivor. But unlike her, he didn't seem broken. There was something steady about him, something that made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, life could be more than surviving alone. "Why help me?" she asked finally after a long silence. Cole shrugged, looking into the fading canyon light. "Because nobody should die alone in this place. Because sometimes even a cowboy like me needs someone who can watch his back." The words were simple, almost ordinary, but they struck something deep in Ayani. Trust was a luxury she hadn't allowed herself in months. But maybe it was time to try. The night deepened, and the desert grew quiet. Stars sparkled above like shards of glass, and the twin moons of Cochise 9 hung low on the horizon. Ayani sat beside Cole, listening to the distant hum of the wind and the desert's strange life. For the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. Somewhere deep inside, a spark began to stir, a faint, fragile thing. Hope. Not the foolish kind that left you broken, but the quiet, steady kind that said maybe survival wasn't the only thing left for her. Maybe life had something more. Tomorrow they would move again. The desert would be just as harsh, the drones just as dangerous, and the shadows would still hide threats. But for tonight, Ayani allowed herself a small, impossible thought. She might not have to face it alone. And as she watched the stars above, she realized that perhaps the shadows on the red dust weren't just places of danger. They could also be places of beginnings. The morning sun rose over the jagged canyons of Cochise 9, painting the desert in sharp shades of red and gold. Ayani rubbed her eyes, feeling the chill of the night still lingering in her bones. Beside her, Cole packed their supplies, humming softly to himself as he worked. There was a rhythm to him, a calm certainty that made the desert feel a little less dangerous than it really was. "You ready?" Cole asked, glancing at her. His wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face, but his eyes were clear and alert. Ayani nodded, strapping her pack onto her shoulders. "I've survived worse." Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. Inside, a small part of her still doubted that anyone could truly survive this world, but after last night, that doubt had softened. She wasn't alone anymore. They began their journey across the plasma plains, a dangerous stretch of desert where storms of charged energy rippled across the sand like invisible lightning. The ground itself hummed faintly, and every step could trigger a sudden shock if you weren't careful. Few travelers dared cross it, and those who did often did so quickly, using old hoverbikes or insulated boots. Ayani preferred walking, using the rocks and shallow ridges as cover, but Cole moved with an ease born of experience, guiding her through safe paths. "This place always makes me nervous," Ayani admitted. She kept her eyes on the horizon, where distant rocks shimmered with faint plasma currents. "One wrong step and—" "You get a shock," Cole finished for her, grinning. "Yeah, I know. But stay low, keep moving, and don't panic. The plains are only as dangerous as you let them be." As they walked, the silence of the desert was broken by distant noises, whistles of wind, the crackle of static from the plasma, and the occasional rustle of small creatures hiding in the rocks. Ayani kept her senses sharp, but she noticed something else too: Cole's stories. He spoke of frontier towns on distant planets, of lone miners who held on to hope, of settlers who built communities in impossible places. At first, she listened quietly, only nodding, but slowly the words began to take root. The stories were simple, but they carried a message she hadn't heard in months. Life could continue, even here, even after everything she had lost. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, heating the plains to a sweltering temperature. The wind carried fine sand that made it hard to see, but Ayani noticed a glint in the distance. She squinted, trying to make sense of it. "Tracks," she said, pointing. "And not ours." Cole crouched beside her, eyes narrowing. "Fresh," he agreed. "Could be raiders. Could be other survivors. Either way, we need to be careful." Ayani felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. She had survived ambushes before, but now, with Cole beside her, she didn't feel quite as exposed. They moved carefully, keeping low, following the tracks without making themselves visible. The tracks led them to a shallow ravine where a group of scavenger drones circled, searching for movement. Ayani signaled to Cole. They crouched behind a rock, whispering plans. Cole grinned, his energy rifle already ready. "I like it when we work together," he said softly. "Makes the fight easier." Ayani almost smiled. "Don't get used to it," she whispered back. When the drones moved closer, they struck. Ayani used a makeshift slingshot to knock one drone's sensor offline, while Cole fired precise energy bolts, disabling the others. Sparks flew as metal collided with energy, and for a moment the plains were filled with flashing lights and the smell of ozone. After the drones were destroyed, they paused to catch their breath. Ayani's heart pounded, not just from the fight, but from the growing realization. She could survive more than just alone. She could survive with someone she trusted, even if just a little. They moved on, carefully navigating the plains. Cole noticed her gaze lingering on distant ridges, her mind clearly elsewhere. "You're thinking about the colony," he said. Ayani stiffened. "It could be a trap," she said. "Or maybe people I knew, people I lost." Cole nodded. "Either way, we'll find out together. That's what matters now." The day wore on. The sun climbed higher and the air shimmered with heat. They crossed cracked ridges where the ground hummed with plasma energy, stepped carefully around patches that could deliver a fatal shock, and used shadows from jagged rocks as cover. Along the way, Ayani began to notice small details. Tracks of desert creatures, the faint scent of something burning far off, and the quiet way Cole adjusted their path when danger seemed near. By evening, they reached a narrow canyon that led toward the colony. The walls glowed faintly with bioluminescent minerals that pulsed like tiny stars. The beauty of it made Ayani pause. For a moment she almost forgot the dangers around her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Cole said, noticing her stare. "It is," she admitted softly. "Almost peaceful." Cole smiled, resting against a rock. "Yeah, peaceful is rare out here. Enjoy it while it lasts." As night fell, they set up a small camp in a hidden crevice. Cole activated a faint energy shield to ward off scavenger drones, and Ayani unpacked their rations. They ate in silence for a while, letting the desert sounds fill the space between them. "Finally," Ayani spoke. "Cole, why do you keep helping me?" Cole leaned back, looking up at the stars. "Because I know what it's like to be alone, to feel like nothing matters. And because I don't think anyone should give up. Not completely. There's always a way forward if you're willing to take it." Ayani looked at him, trying to measure whether he was telling the truth. Something in his eyes, steady and unshaken, convinced her. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope, not just for survival, but for something more. The night was long. Plasma storms flashed in the distance, lighting the desert with brief, dangerous brilliance. Strange cries of unknown creatures echoed through the canyons. Ayani kept watch for part of the night, her senses sharp, her body tense, but Cole stayed calm beside her, unshaken by the desert's dangers. By dawn, they were moving again. The colony was near. Ayani could feel it in the air, a mix of human activity and mechanical sounds that hinted at life. Her pulse quickened, a mixture of anticipation and fear. She didn't know if she would find survivors, friends, or enemies. As they approached a ridge overlooking the colony, they saw movement. Figures scurried between structures built from scavenged metal and old mining equipment. Some were armed, some were carrying supplies. The settlement was alive, bustling with cautious energy. Ayani's breath caught. She recognized some of the symbols painted on the buildings, symbols from her tribe. Her heart raced. Could it be possible? Could some of her people have survived? Or was it a cruel trick of the desert? Cole rested a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Whatever happens," he said, "we face it together." Ayani nodded, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. Fear was still there, yes, but now mixed with determination. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't hide. Whatever awaited them at the colony, she would face it, and she wouldn't be alone. The desert stretched before them, wide and dangerous. But Ayani and Cole moved forward, ready for whatever the day would bring. And for the first time in a long time, Ayani felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Hope. Somewhere ahead, the colony waited, alive, mysterious, and possibly dangerous. But Ayani had survived worse. And now, with Cole by her side, she might just survive whatever came next. The plasma plane shimmered beneath the rising sun, dangerous and beautiful as ever. And Ayani, once ready to give up, found herself stepping forward with new strength, ready to face the unknown. Ayani's heart pounded as she and Cole crested the ridge overlooking the colony. Below, the settlement spread across a flat stretch of desert, a patchwork of metal shacks, solar panels, and scavenged machinery. Smoke rose from small chimneys and faint lights flickered in the early morning glow. People moved between structures, carrying water, food, and tools. Ayani's breath caught. Some of the symbols painted on the walls were familiar, tribal markings from her people. Her chest tightened with a mixture of hope and fear. Could it be possible that some of her family had survived? Or had they all been lost, leaving only ghosts in the desert wind? Cole rested a steady hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens, we face it together," he said quietly. His calm voice anchored her as the wind swept across the ridge. She nodded, swallowing her fear. She had survived so much already, and she wasn't alone now. They began their careful descent toward the colony, keeping to the shadows of the rocks. The closer they got, the more Ayani noticed details that made her uneasy. Several buildings showed signs of recent damage: burn marks, broken walls, scorched metal. Something had attacked here recently, and the people inside had survived. Somehow. As they moved through a narrow alley between two structures, they heard shouting. Ayani pressed herself against a wall, peeking around the corner. A group of cybernetic raiders had infiltrated the colony. Their bodies were part machine, part human, and their glowing eyes scanned for movement. They carried energy rifles and heavy melee weapons, moving with cold efficiency. Ayani's blood ran cold. These were not ordinary raiders. These were the same mercenaries who had destroyed her tribe months ago, enhanced with stolen cybertech. Cole noticed her tension. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We can take them, but we have to be smart." They crouched behind a pile of crates, scanning the area. Ayani's instincts kicked in. She noticed the patrol patterns of the raiders and saw the way their sensors swept the area. They were strong, but predictable. Cole turned to her. "You take the left side. I'll cover the right. Move together, watch each other's backs. We can do this." Ayani nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. She had faced raiders before, but never this advanced, never this dangerous. And yet, for the first time in months, she felt like she could fight, not just for herself, but for others. They moved silently, slipping between shadows, using debris and walls as cover. Ayani's pulse raced as she drew close to a raider's flank. With careful precision, she disabled his sensor unit with a small EMP device Cole had given her. The raider's glowing eyes flickered and went dark, and he fell silently to the ground. Cole covered her as she moved, firing bursts of energy at advancing raiders. Sparks and smoke filled the air as they fought, the sounds of battle echoing through the colony. Despite the chaos, Ayani felt a strange clarity. She and Cole worked seamlessly, their movements coordinated, their trust growing with every step. The raiders pressed forward, relentless. Ayani spotted a small group trying to flank them. She signaled to Cole, and together they forced the attackers back, using both tactics and terrain to their advantage. Daddy's sharpshooting combined with Ayani's agility created a deadly combination. Amid the battle, Ayani noticed a familiar face, a young woman carrying water, who froze in terror as a raider advanced. Ayani acted instinctively, leaping from cover and knocking the raider off balance. The young woman ran to safety, and Ayani felt a surge of purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was protecting others. The battle continued for what felt like hours, but Ayani and Cole gradually pushed the raiders back toward the edge of the colony. They fought side by side, each action reinforcing the unspoken bond between them. Ayani realized she had begun to trust Cole completely, and that trust gave her strength she hadn't felt in months. Finally, the raiders regrouped and prepared for a final push. Their leader, a tall, cyber-enhanced mercenary, stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the morning light. Ayani's chest tightened. She recognized him instantly. The same man who had led the attack on her tribe. Cole placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We end this together," he said. His eyes were hard, determined. Ayani nodded, gripping her weapon. The final battle began. The raider leader charged, his mechanical limbs moving with terrifying speed. Cole fired precise shots, slowing him down, while Ayani used her agility to strike from the shadows. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, and the colony shook with the intensity of the fight. Ayani felt fear, but it was mixed with resolve. She had survived so much already, and she would not let this man destroy her people, or her chance at life. With a swift maneuver, she disabled one of the leader's energy generators, causing his armor to short-circuit. Cole fired a final shot that knocked the mercenary off balance, sending him sprawling. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader defeated, retreated, vanishing into the desert with furious howls. The colony fell silent, the echo of battle fading into the wind. Ayani and Cole stood together, breathing heavily, surveying the damage. People began emerging from hiding, looking at the two strangers who had saved them. Some of the survivors approached Ayani cautiously, their faces a mix of curiosity and recognition. She noticed a few elders who studied her intently, and her heart swelled with a mix of hope and sorrow. Perhaps not all was lost. Perhaps some of her people had survived. Cole clapped a hand on her shoulder, smiling faintly. "See? We made it. Together." Ayani allowed herself a small smile, feeling a strange warmth spread through her chest. She had faced death, danger, and despair, and she had survived, not alone, but with someone she trusted. As the day progressed, the colony began to rebuild. People worked together, repairing structures and tending to the wounded. Ayani walked among them, cautiously greeting those she recognized, feeling a deep sense of connection she hadn't felt in months. She realized that life, even after so much loss, could still hold meaning. Cole stayed close, his presence a constant reassurance. He didn't force conversation, didn't offer empty words. He simply stayed steady and reliable, a reminder that even in the harshest worlds, some people could be trusted. That night, as the twin moons of Cochise, 9 rose above the desert, Ayani and Cole stood on a ridge overlooking the colony. The settlement was quiet now, the immediate danger past, but the memory of the battle lingered in the air. Ayani turned to Cole, her voice soft but steady. I didn't think I could feel hope again, but now maybe I can." Cole smiled, tipping his hat. "Hope isn't something you find. It's something you earn. And you've earned it, Ayani. You've earned it by surviving, by fighting, by believing in yourself." For the first time in months, Ayani allowed herself to believe it. She had survived the desert alone. She had survived the raiders. And now, she had survived alongside someone she trusted. The colony, once a place of uncertainty and fear, had become a place of possibility. And Ayani, once ready to give up, felt a spark of determination deep within her. She would not just survive, she would live. The wind swept across the plains, carrying with it the faint scent of promise. Ayani looked at the stars, letting the beauty of the desert night wash over her. Somewhere ahead there would be more challenges, more dangers, more battles. But she was ready. She had Cole at her side, a colony to protect, and a renewed sense of purpose. And for the first time in a long time, Ayani smiled freely, feeling a warmth she hadn't known she could feel. Life, she realized, was not over. It was just beginning. The desert, harsh and unforgiving, had tested her, and she had passed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new choices. But tonight, Ayani allowed herself a rare moment of peace, knowing she had survived, and that she could survive anything with courage, trust, and hope. The first light of dawn stretched across the red plains of Cochise Avenue, 9, painting the desert in gold and pink. The wind was softer than usual, carrying the faint scent of earth and metal. Ayani stood on the ridge overlooking the colony, her eyes tracing the familiar shapes of the buildings she had fought to protect. Smoke rose from repaired chimneys, and the settlers were already beginning their morning tasks, a quiet rhythm of survival and life. Beside her, Cole checked his weapons and pack, moving with the steady confidence of someone who had faced danger countless times. He glanced at Ayani, noticing the calm on her face. "Morning," he said simply. "Sleep well?" Ayani allowed herself a small smile. "Better than I have in months," she admitted. The colony below them seemed alive, safe for the first time since she had arrived. She could see children playing near the edges of the settlement, laughing as they ran across patches of dust and metal. Life, she realized, had returned to this place. The night had been quiet, almost peaceful, but both of them knew the desert was never truly safe. Raiders could return, storms could sweep in without warning, and the harsh sun could drain the strongest survivor. Yet for the first time, Ayani did not feel fear as sharply as before. She had fought, she had survived, and she had chosen to live again. Cole spoke softly, breaking the silence. "We've held them off, for now, but I think they'll try again. If they do, we'll be ready." Ayani nodded. She had learned to trust him completely, to rely on his skill and judgment. But she also knew something important. She was no longer just a survivor following someone else. She had grown stronger, sharper, faster. She could fight, lead, and protect. Together, they were more than enough. They descended into the colony, moving among the settlers. Ayani felt a mixture of emotions: relief, hope, and a deep sense of connection. These were people who had been through hardships just like her, and yet they had not given up. Seeing them rebuild inspired her, reminding her that even the harshest desert could still hold life, community, and meaning. An elder approached her, his eyes soft but searching. "You fought bravely," he said, bowing slightly. "You protected our home when it was threatened." "Who are you, child?" Ayani hesitated, the weight of her past pressing on her. "My name is Ayani," she said finally. I was lost in this desert alone, but I found someone to help me survive." She glanced at Cole, who gave her an encouraging nod. The elder studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "Then you are welcome here, Ayani. You have brought courage and hope back to our people." The word felt strange on her tongue, almost foreign. But it was real. She realized that she had not only survived, she had reclaimed something she thought she had lost forever: the ability to care about life again. Cole approached her, his usual quiet confidence in every step. "You did good," he said simply. "Better than good. You led, you fought, and you helped these people survive. That's something most cowboys can't claim." Ayani felt a warmth spread through her chest. For months she had believed she had nothing left to give, no reason to keep going. But now, standing in the sunlight of a desert that had once seemed like a tomb, she understood that life was not just about surviving. It was about fighting for something bigger than herself. As the day progressed, the settlers worked to rebuild the colony. Structures were repaired, food supplies were distributed, and small gardens were tended to under protective domes. Ayani assisted where she could, moving with precision and skill, helping to fortify defenses and organize patrols. Cole stayed close, offering guidance but letting her take the lead. By mid-afternoon, the colony had regained much of its former rhythm. Children laughed and played, adults worked with purpose, and the once frightened settlers now moved with confidence. Ayani watched them, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had arrived a stranger, a survivor clinging to life. Now she was part of something enduring. But even in this moment of peace, Ayani remained vigilant. She knew the desert could turn hostile without warning. Storms could rise, raiders could return, and the fragile safety of the colony could be shattered in an instant. Yet she did not feel fear the way she once had. With Cole at her side and the colony standing strong, she felt ready to face anything. As evening approached, Cole and Ayani stood on the ridge again, overlooking the settlement bathed in the golden glow of sunset. The twin moons of Cochise 9 rose above the horizon, casting pale light over the desert plains. "Looks like peace for now," Cole said, his voice quiet. Ayani nodded. "For now," she agreed. But this time she said it without fear. She knew that life would always carry risks, but she also knew she was no longer powerless. She had survived, she had fought, and she had found hope. Cole leaned on his rifle, watching the horizon. "You've come a long way," he said. "From the girl hiding in the canyons to someone who can lead, fight, and protect. I'm proud of you, Ayani." She looked at him, a small smile on her face. "I couldn't have done it alone," she said. "I'm glad you were there." Cole nodded, a faint grin on his lips. "Same here. There aren't many people you can trust in the desert, but you're different." The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of desert flowers that had somehow survived the harsh climate. Ayani closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. The desert, once a place of despair, now felt like a home, not just for survival, but for life, for growth, for hope. That night, the colony gathered for a quiet celebration. People shared food, stories, and laughter, grateful for safety and for each other. Ayani moved among them, listening and learning, helping wherever she could. She realized that life was about connections, about the bonds we form and the people we protect. Cole stayed beside her, quiet but present. Together they watched the colony, ready to face whatever might come next. They did not speak much, for words were not needed. The trust between them was enough, and the knowledge that they had survived together gave both of them strength. As the night deepened, Ayani finally allowed herself to rest. For months she had been ready to give up, ready to fade away into the desert alone. Now she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had survived, she had protected life, and she had learned to hope again. The desert was still harsh, still dangerous, but she no longer feared it as she once had. She had found allies, a home, and the courage to face anything. The lessons of the red dust had been harsh, but they had forged her into someone strong, resilient, and alive. In the quiet of the night, Ayani stood once more on the ridge, looking at the colony sleeping below. Cole was beside her, silent but steady. The stars above glittered in the sky, distant yet bright, a reminder that the universe was wide, full of possibility, and waiting to be explored. Ayani smiled, a feeling she had not known for a long time. She had been lost in the desert, ready to die, but now she was alive. Not just alive, but ready to live, ready to fight, ready to protect, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. Cole tipped his hat toward her, a silent acknowledgement of their journey together. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked with a faint grin. Ayani laughed softly, a sound like music across the desert plains. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "I'm ready." And together they watched the red dust sunrise, the desert stretching endlessly before them. The colony thrived, life flourished, and Ayani understood that even in the harshest worlds, hope could survive and grow stronger than any fear. The wind carried the promise of new beginnings, and Ayani knew that this was only the start. The desert had tested her, pushed her to the edge, and nearly claimed her life. But she had survived, she had fought, and now she was free to live, truly live, under the twin suns of Cochise. 9. And in that moment, Ayani realized that sometimes the harshest deserts could lead to the brightest dawns